So as he's saying that, I'm watching the live stream fail like 3 times and try and get it back on. So hopefully it doesn't happen while I'm up here. Thank you, Ty. That was a wonderful introduction. Just to give you guys a little bit about who I am. I graduated in August with a PhD in chemistry, and I seriously have no idea how I'm standing here right now. So it's a much different world than the chemistry world. But I love it. I love every minute of it. So I'm really glad to be here. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Bitcoin Private, kind of my thoughts on why this is important, right? So we all know that cryptocurrency has gone mainstream. There are so many different companies that are using this as currency now, right? Microsoft, they were using it, then they stopped using it, and then they started using it again. So they're back in. Bloomberg, Braintree from PayPal. There's just so many. My personal favorite is I can go to Canada and buy KFC. That's awesome. I live like 10 minutes from Canada, so I really have to go and do that. And then there's just so many more. All of these companies are now accepting it. It's just fantastic. I can go to OkCupid and sign up and get dates. I don't need to, but I can. That's awesome. So we all know one of the reasons why this is great. Part of Satoshi's vision was something that had less inflation, right? Or at least controlled inflation. We all know how much Bitcoin is going to be made. We know at what rate it's going to inflate, and we have no idea what's going on with US dollars or other fiat currencies. They're made and burned or whatever whenever the government feels like doing it, right? And I'm not saying that the government's bad. I'm just saying that it's nice to have the cost of a currency in our hands rather than controlled by, invisible hands. Obviously, it's better security. I mean, we all know, if you're all here, you probably all know that the blockchain has unbelievable security. It's the best on the market, best cryptography on the market. So I'm not even going to spend that much time on this slide. And all of this really allows you to have financial freedom, right? You have fantastic security. You don't have to worry about your currency being manipulated in a way. If we take, for example, a US dollar I hold today is worth less tomorrow and worth less the next day. But if I have Bitcoin, I mean, it might be worth 100% less tomorrow, but then hopefully it's worth 1,000% more the day after that, right? I'm sure we've all been through it at least once or twice. So, and that allows us more financial freedom, right? We have more control, and that's fantastic. We should have more control over our lives. And we all know that Bitcoin is the king. I mean, let's be realistic. It's the first. It has the most pairs. You can go and trade with it. It's the king, and everybody knows it. Nobody is, a few people dispute that, right? And they're trying to replace it, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be like that anytime soon. But maybe eventually. I kind of like to liken it to, cars, right? Why would I go around, sure, Model T or, Ford's Model T was like the first car, right? But why would I still drive that when I could go buy a Tesla right now? It doesn't make any sense. And so it's slow, right? I can drive a really fast Tesla, or what everyone likes to talk about, Lambos in the crypto world, instead of a Model T. Why would I do that? And we all know how fast technology moves now, right? Like 60 years, the amount of technology that we would get over 60 years, like 100 years ago, happens in like a week now. So it moves really quickly. There are really high fees. We've all experienced this. I mean, come on. I've had at least once or twice where you try to send like $300 worth of Bitcoin and it costs you 15 bucks. But what if I'm a business and I want to sell something that's $5 and it costs me $15 to sell it? I just lost money because I wanted to use Bitcoin. That's not really financial freedom, right? So back to the slow thing. How many of you have had, for instance, an exchange take 3 hours for Bitcoin to get to it? I know I am. Raise your hand if you're one of those people. Wallet to wallet, sometimes over an hour. I mean, it's absolutely absurd when there are other technologies that take just a couple minutes. So, that kind of stinks, right? And then, of course, not very much privacy related with this. Well, there used to be. That was the original vision, right? Was to have privacy, to be able to spend digital money without being tracked by banks, institutions, etc. That you could do this and feel free and feel safe. But lately, it's been mostly de-anonymized, or at least some percentage of it has, right? So they can find a way to track you. Now, it's not necessarily easy, but every year it gets easier. Every day it gets easier. So can we find something, or can we use a technology that isn't susceptible to that? And that goes back to just talking about privacy in general. We all have the right to privacy and the right to safety. I strongly believe in it. I think our entire team strongly believes in it, and that's exactly why we're a part of this project. So, why do we need privacy? One of the reasons I like to say it is protection from hackers, particularly in the crypto sphere, right? I mean, if you have funds stored on a wallet, and they can hack your computer, they can find it, and they can take it, right? But if they already knew your address somehow, they can check it and see if it's worthwhile in order to do that. But if you're on a private ledger or you have actual privacy, they have no way of seeing what you have on a public ledger, right? So I like to think we'd have protection from hackers, more so than what Ty was talking about earlier. I'm not going to get into that just because he already spoke about it. Everyone always says that privacy is only for criminals and terrorists. I do not agree with this statement. How many people in here agree with that statement? We got one. All right, maybe two. Only for criminals and terrorists, right? I am not a criminal or a terrorist. Yeah, so did everyone hear that? Said if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. Yeah. I don't really believe in that. Ben Franklin once said to us that they who can give up an essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. The instant you're willing to give up any of your liberties or freedoms, you deserve none of them. And you also don't necessarily, everyone deserves safety. I'm not going to support necessarily that, but you probably won't get safety in that case, right? I mean, let's just take a look back at the fantastic book 1984, right? Where everyone just gets watched. They've lost everything at that point. So. Yeah. Yeah, and that was great. I mean, they wanted to give the FBI just a, hey, yeah, we'll unlock this one phone for you. And I would be fine with that, right? I mean, the guy was obviously a terrorist, but they weren't going to give him a back door to every single phone out there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, exactly. And it's a fantastic point, Mark. So, yeah, and it did happen. So then they had to patch it, right? And then they fix it, and then, we're going to start all over again. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, and it's inevitable. I mean, people will argue too that how do you know that it's going to be private forever? I mean, it's private until someone proves it's not. It's an unfortunate reality, but at least we can run with it until it's proven otherwise, right? And this is why you should, or at least what I believe in, is give me liberty or give me death, right? I don't want to live in a world without liberty. This is what we've been given at this point. And it's a privilege, don't get me wrong. I feel fantastic. I love the fact that I'm able to have this, but that doesn't mean, I'd rather die than not have it, especially having been raised with it. So that'll actually get into what Bitcoin private is. I'll stop preaching on my soapbox now and start to tell you what I'm actually trying to sell you, right? Not sell you, sorry. Market to you. I don't sell anything. I should probably give a Tizen disclaimer. I am, however, modestly invested in this project. So. So we're a fork from Z Classic and Bitcoin. This was Rhett's idea. I remember the day that I found out about it. I was just kind of hanging out in the Z Classic Telegram. I had no idea what was going on, and he just said, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I need volunteers," and now I'm operations lead. So weird things happen from time to time. It's a fantastic idea. No one's ever really thought of this, and there's a lot that goes on to it. Ty said it best yesterday when we were at Crypto in Frisco, actually, which is one of the major reasons why this is so cool is because we're able to bring two completely separate communities together. Maybe there's some overlap, but two completely separate communities together into one fantastic coin. So why should I choose Bitcoin private over Bitcoin or other Bitcoin forks? 4 to 6 times faster. The transaction speed or block speed is around 2.5 minutes on average. That's fantastic. I mean, literally, I'll send my funds from one wallet to the next or to an exchange, and I can see it pending almost instantaneously, and then I see it within, usually it's under 2 minutes confirmed, and then I can move it around again. It's unbelievable how fast it is. Extremely low fees. The block size is double. It's 2 megabytes instead of 1, and that makes it a lot better than your typical 1 megabyte block size on Bitcoin. It's community driven. We have something like over 100 people contributing to this. It can be a little bit hectic at times, but I think we have an effective management and organization now that's really running very smoothly. And I love this part. And people say that it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I can go out any day and say, listen, we need someone who's better at doing this. Like yesterday or the day before, we needed someone to make a Docker image for us. And I just went out on Twitter and said, hey, we need an expert in this. It'll take us a few hours to get it done, but an expert should be done in 30 minutes or something like that. I had like 20 people message me in minutes, and then we got it done in half the amount of time that would have normally taken us. Right? And they'll complain, well, why don't you already have those people? And because we're a community, we do have those people. I just have to find them. That's all it really is. We're decentralized, very decentralized, given that we just keep adding new developers. By the way, I'm supposed to shout out the developers. You guys have been doing an amazing job. Love you guys with the Electrum wallet, getting up that mining pool, everything. They've been unbelievable. Let's give a round of applause for them. Honestly, I don't know how we ended up with such a fantastic group of developers that are just donating their time to us. They're just unbelievable, and I love every one of them. I like to think we have a transparent governance. We just set it up, right? I mean, it's just starting. There's 5 of us. We're all publicly known, every single one of us, and it's set up in a way that 5 of us have control of the wallet through a multi-sig. And all 5 of us have to agree to send those funds out. And basically, we can request to the community, hey, should we spend these funds? And then we can discuss among ourselves and vote on it. So it's very transparent. We'll tell everyone where those funds are going. It's just started. We actually haven't spent anything yet, so you'll see that process in action in the future. And then, of course, we have ZK Snark's privacy protocol. Now, I'm sure Rhett will tell you about it later, so I won't tell you much about it, other than the fact that I think it's the best privacy protocol out there. The private ledger is completely invisible, so you can send funds to and from those Z addresses, and you cannot see that on the public ledger. It's really a fantastic privacy protocol. So what about some other privacy coins? I'm just going to compare with other Z protocol coins because I really do think that that's the best privacy protocol. Now, I'm sure I could argue for days with other people about that, but it would take way too long for me to compare with every single privacy coin out there. So right now, there's 3, what I like to call 3 major other Z protocol forks. First one is Zcash. There's some speculation. It was pre-mined, not proven, but it has been speculated. What I like to call a coerce tax. They call it a founder's tax. Either way, I think it's just a terrible name. And they basically have like, I don't know, their development team is rather small, kind of centralized, so a lot of funds in very few people's hands, right? Fairly low transparency. I try and look up what they're doing all the time, and it seems like it can be really hard to figure out what's going on. So, and really high inflation at the moment. There's still something like 18 million coins that need to be mined out of 21 million, so that's a lot of inflation over the next few years, right? Zencash, this was actually, so Z Classic is a fork from Zcash. Zencash is a fork from Z Classic, so a fork of a fork, just like I guess Bitcoin Private will be a fork of a fork and then a fork of Bitcoin. So I think they kind of have a coerce tax. It's not it's a little bit more transparent. I think the dev is less centralized. Like I said, I still think it's more transparent than Zcash is, and it still has that really high inflation. No, Z Classic has that same really high inflation too. Then Komodo, but not the lizard, the coin. It has a really significant pre-mine. They were an ICO, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I mean, there's a lot of really great ICOs out there. There's also a lot that are complete scams, like everyone knows BitConnect, right? Hopefully no one in here was scammed by BitConnect. Yeah, I have everything. All I use is BitConnect. That's it. Okay. Really high inflation. They have something like 100 million coins left to mine. And so how do we compare with ours? We've already talked about these things these 3 things that I think are fantastic about our project. We have no pre-mine. There is no coerce tax. And we have Bitcoin brand recognition. I mean, let's not deny the fact that this matters, and bringing that community in, having that brand recognition, it matters, it's important, right? That's a huge community. It's the largest community out of any coin is Bitcoin. So bringing that community in instantaneously is a huge advantage. So what are we working on before the fork happens? This is kind of how I see it. I kind of reworked this a little bit this morning, so it's not 100% official yet. We're going to re-release again tomorrow with some updated things and maybe some dates. But We need to release the Z Classic shielded Electrum wallet. We did transparent. You probably saw that come out yesterday. It works amazingly. There's maybe 1 or 2 issues have been reported on Mac, I think, but for Windows, works 100% of the time. Really proud of our developers who were able to get that done. We need to create the Bitcoin private Electrum wallet. Apparently then the fork comes because I messed up my animations. We have to release a white paper. Finish our voluntary miner contribution program, which I'll tell you about next. And then we'll do the snapshot, and then the fork will follow the snapshot, okay? It won't come after the wallet. And so I just wanted to tell you about this voluntary miner contribution program. I think it's fantastic. It's really interesting, and we need more people to jump in. It just grew exponentially. I mean, it went, literally yesterday we had about 1 megahash per second on this program, and as of today we're up to 9. So it's growing exponentially. If you're a miner, come talk to me about it afterwards if you want to know more. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it now. 1.25 Bitcoin private per Z Classic at the moment. So if you go in, we're trying to raise about 50,000 Z Classic, and at the end we'll create 62.5 thousand Bitcoin private at the fork and hand that back to the miners who mined and contributed to us, okay? So basically it's an exchange for hash power. Now some people might call this a pre-mine. I don't think it's a pre-mine when we're giving the funds back to the mining community. They were gonna mine it anyways, right? So how is that considered a pre-mine? I would disagree. We need funding, and we need that for exchanges, development, marketing, and just general and administrative costs that any kind of organization has to pay for. And this is why we launched this program. So if you're interested in it, go to this website, fund.zclassic.org. And again, just come and ask me if you want to know more about it. I think it's a fantastic program. You're going to get more Bitcoin. If you were planning on holding through the fork, you're going to get more Bitcoin private at the end. So afterwards. So, and we had a bug in it where it wasn't showing how much Bitcoin private you had earned. It was just fixed a couple hours ago, so now everything's running really smoothly. I highly recommend getting on there and helping us out. It would mean a lot to us, and it would mean a lot to Bitcoin private and the team and all of the developers and marketers and everyone who's been working tirelessly for no pay whatsoever. So with that, I'm just going to show off our team a little bit. Rhett, myself, Giuseppe, who's just been amazing at marketing. I mean, he's taken the whole marketing program on his back. I call him, we talk on the phone like 20 times a day. It's getting actually kind of out of control. But we have a huge team. This isn't even all the team. I mean, our community is amazing with over 70 people. I mentioned that before. There's a lot of people on here. This was, since the last time I did this, we already updated it again with more people. So everyone's allowed to get their name and face on there if they've contributed to a certain extent. And this list is just growing. I honestly think we're one of the best teams out there. I mean, we're doing so well for what we are, a team of volunteers, literally. So maybe we can give a round of applause again for everyone who's volunteered their time for this project.